Is simply hearing the Classic Metal Show not enough for you? Subscribe to CMS TV and watch Neely and Chris as they bring their debauchery to the masses each and every week. For only $6.99 a month, you can watch all the segments of each week's Classic Metal Show. Additionally, you'll get bonus episodes that are only released to CMS TV subscribers. Sign up today. Visit theclassicmetalshow.com and click subscribe in the menu today.
It's definitely just a difficult time in music, and especially in rock and roll, to get your toe in the pond, so to speak. I mean, there's a zillion outlets for it, but there's a zillion bands that are filling the zillion outlets, and there's no real major media that promotes bands like Kings of Dust. So for you guys, how do you broach, getting the name out there and getting people to listen in what is a harder time than maybe in previous eras?
Well, that's where you come in.
The thing is, back in the day, in the 80s when I made my bones for my career, you had 10 or 12 magazines that came out a month, and you might be in there at some level. And then, of course, there was the MTV thing, and then you went on tour, and that's where people saw you. There was no internet. There was no blogging. There was no internet radio. Everything was terrestrial radio. So when you went to whatever town it was, you did their one radio station that played your music. So that was a real cool way of doing it. So on one hand, the way that it's done now does have its advantages. Facebook does have its advantages. For everything that's bad about it, there's a lot of good stuff about it. And the whole internet thing where, you can do interviews and stuff like that with people you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that with in the 70s or 80s.
Sure.
And it only started in the 90s. So while it is a difficult market, and mainly that's just because there's no record companies now. No one's on a record company that promotes your record. I mean, the days of having the big machine behind you to promote your record and get you out there and pay tour support and make sure it's in the stores, those days are gone for 99% of the bands that record. For someone like us, we don't have a machine behind us. The machine is the four of us and our promo guy, Dave Tedder. So we just kind of try to get involved with as many interviews and accommodate people in whatever way we can. Because of YouTube, when we start playing live, there'll be tons of videos on YouTube of us doing our thing. There's also videos of us rehearsing and whatever. So that part of it does make it easier, but it also kind of dilutes the whole thing a little bit too, because there's so, like you said, there's a gazillion bands out there trying to do something that, everyone's trying to do the same thing, and everyone's trying to be different at the same time. For us, making the kind of record that we made, the way that we did it, the way we approached it, the way that we wrote it, we weren't trying to do anything other than what we wanted to do. We didn't care about any commercial viability. We weren't really concerned with anything other than making an honest document of where we were at that time. And because of that, the response has been overwhelmingly great. Like you said, you've heard the record. And so people that might not think it has any kind of, commercial sort of thing to it, because the songs are long and all that, they're finding some commercial authenticity there with it as well, because of the way the songs are written, the hooks that are written in the songs, the vibe, the swing, the vocals. So accidentally, we ended up making something that has become and is becoming more popular without us really trying to do it that way. We're trying to say what we wanted to say.
But that's really where it starts, and I think that's a problem for a lot of other, I don't want to say acts that are out there, but that's a basic problem of the music industry right now in general, is that's not where it starts. Content is where it starts, and I'm really proud of the record that we made, but I'm just as proud of the reaction that we've got to it, because without that reaction, it kind of stops there.
We're not talking to you without that reaction. The reaction has been very positive, and that allows us to be able to help promote our record with someone like you. So it all kind of works hand in hand.
Sure. Definitely. Now, as you launch a new band, and Kings of Dust is obviously, brandy spanking new for everybody but you guys, I'm assuming at this point. When you're doing that, certainly, having names of bands that people have heard, whether it's Red Dragon Cartel or whether it's Badlands, helps, but it only helps for the moment. And I have to think, in a way, it's almost, again, it's that double-edged sword. There's people like me. I worship the Badlands records. I play those 3 records every single week and have since 1989. That's just how ingrained I am with those records. Love them, never going to get rid of them, never going to be away from them. That said, if I went into listening to Kings of Dust wanting Badlands, I'm going to be maybe not disappointed, but I probably would have the wrong expectation for what you're doing.
Well, I mean, obviously I was in Badlands, and Jake and I are still bros to this day.
Sure.
And but I mean, when I was doing this, putting this together the way that it is, I wasn't thinking about a continuation of Badlands.
Sure.
People do get a natural kind of Badlands vibe from it, but I think that is based on the fact that Jake and mine influences are the same, very similar. The way he approaches songwriting with a lot of moving parts and without really spending a lot of time worrying about whether other people are going to like it is the same way that we approached Kings of Dust. I'm not really trying to make a commercial statement. I'm just trying to make the statement I want to make, and if people like it, great, and if they don't, they'll move on to something else. But that same way that we did it in Badlands and the way that we do it here kind of resonates with a lot of people, where they kind of like the honesty of it, the kind of rebel vibe to it, where it's like, this is our thing, this is how we do it. So obviously I don't think the record sounds like Badlands, but it has a certain Badlands-esque vibe just due to the way that I approach my songwriting is very similar to how Jake
how he writes,
promotes his songwriting. And the other thing is, when I was in Badlands, the greatest thing about Badlands was everyone got a free rein to write their own parts. I wrote my own bass parts. Jake didn't tell me what to play. Jake didn't tell either drummer how to play. We didn't tell Ray what to do. It was all us adding to it and making it into what it was. And that's very similar to Kings of Dust. Whereas I might be the main writer of a lot of the material, I don't write the drum parts. I don't write the guitar parts. I bring it in. I don't write the vocals. I say, here's what I got. If you think there's something here, let's see what we can add to it. And then by the time Jimi adds what he does, Ryan adds what he does, Michael adds what he does, that makes it into a song. It takes the 4 of us to make it into a song. That's very similar to Badlands as well. It's just that, this is what we're saying. And if people people hear what they want to hear. So
right.
If they're getting any of that vibe out of it, more power to them. If they don't hear it, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned some of the other vocalists, including Ray. Ray, for sure, one of my favorite vocalists, because if he wasn't, I'd be stupid. He's just that kind of singer. But at the same time, I don't pattern my stuff after Ray. I don't feel like I'm emulating Ray in any way. But for sure, he's in there somewhere. And the good thing about this record and when we write is Greg usually comes in with the bulk of the song, but fortunately for me, when he starts playing, I hear melody immediately. I mean, it doesn't take very long.
Right.
So what comes out of my head, both lyrically and melody-wise, happens pretty fast. And I mean, that's the kind of gift you don't really question. You just kind of let it go,
right?
And where it takes you. And I'm happy that gift is there.
All I know is that Michael Beck just said on the radio that I'm a gift. So thank you. There, and I will be using that from now till I turn into a king of dust.
Creative pedigree.
Nice. Well, guys, talk about how you guys actually do write and create, because I'm going to make a guess here that you do it the old-fashioned way, where you get in a room together and you create, and you're not just throwing MP3s back and forth through emails. Is that sort of accurate?
MP what?
Yeah, exactly.
What's an MP3?
Yeah, what the hell is that?
We're fortunate. We all live in the same town, so it's not like, I have to send these guys anything. So we do have the luxury of being able to get into rehearsal and create that way. I mean, the way that the writing is usually done is, I'll have an idea. The original version of the band, there was another guitar player, Mike Petruno, and him and I wrote some stuff together, and he was kind of from the same mindset as me. We used some of those songs we originally wrote, Ugly and Like an Ocean and Wolves and some others. We just got in a room and played the parts we had, and then everyone added to it. The way that's kind of done now is very similar. I might bring in some ideas for a song. I'll kind of start playing it. There'll be no tape for anyone to listen to. I don't record it on my phone. Jimmy hears it for the first time when I'm playing the riff on my bass or whatever the parts are. Same with Ryan. And then I say, do your thing. And then they all just kind of throw in the thing. So it's us basically jamming it, molding it, conforming it into what we want, tearing it apart, putting it back together, seeing what works. And that whole procedure actually happens pretty quickly. I mean, the song's almost, I'm a big believer in the song will go in the direction it wants to go. So it really is us writing, the song's writing itself, with us just kind of steering it in the direction we want to go. I've said a number of times, I can play the drums, but I'm not a drummer.
Sure.
So what Jimmy adds to it, I can't even think that way. So I might have a basic rudimentary idea of what I'm hearing, but by the time Jimmy gets done with it, it's way beyond anything I could come up with. And that's the same with Ryan on guitar. I can play guitar as well, but I can't come up with what Ryan comes up with. So I basically might give these guys a basic, simple template of what the song's going to be, and then they start adding their parts to it, and then pretty soon, same with Michael's parts, it's a song, and it ends up usually being better than it's always better than what I could hear in my head.
Sure.
It typically comes together relatively easily because we all pretty much come from the same background. We all have, from a musical interest and things that we cut our teeth on, so to speak, all are kind of in that same realm. So it's a lot of fun for me, and it's very organic. What comes out is it's easy.
Sure. Well, and the thing that really kind of sucked me into the record is it does feel organic, but the one specific thing I'll point to, musically, and I'm somewhat of a music critic, I guess, but is that it's not so guitar solo driven that you have to rely on that. If anything, the songs on this are so rhythm driven that you just get pulled into the rhythm of each song, and it's kind of like a amalgamation of all of you working together. And you don't hear that a lot in today's world of rock and metal. I mean, you hear it in the classic age, but the newer stuff almost feels layered, where you guys feel like one rhythmic unit from start to finish, pushing a song through.
That's because, in my opinion, anyway, most of when you think of a guitar player, it's not anybody that is under 40.
True.
Because most times, all the great lead players, Eddie Van Halen and George Lynch, and of course Jake and Randy Rhoads, and all those guys, they were great lead players, but they were phenomenal rhythm players.
Sure.
And That's why we're still talking about them. The leads are just an add-on to that. The rhythm basis of what they were doing is really the thing that stands out, and Ryan has that in spades. So,
I mean, the way that we kind of, the way that this stuff is presented is there's a lot of moving parts in our songs, and so there's a lot of areas where it's just not a simple verse, chorus, maybe a bridge, solo over the chorus, and the song's over. My mind doesn't work that way, so I'm always thinking of ways to amuse myself with the song, and that requires having a lot of key changes and moving parts and speeding up and slowing down, all while maintaining the rhythm and the groove that we, have set forth with that, and then also allowing each member to be creative in their own way. And the other thing that allows that is the way that this was mixed. Wasn't mixed like records are mixed today. This was mixed very old school, like it was in the 70s, with a very broad sonic palette. So there was, I wanted a space for everything, as opposed to the way things are mixed now, where the kick drum is above the bass. The bass has a kind of a sound to it, and then the bass is in the same spot as the kick drum, and everything's right in the same place. I wanted it to be as much space as available. So if it's 220 inches of space available to mix this sonically, I wanted to use all of it, and most people use about 60 inches.
Yeah.
I wanted to use everything that was available to give everything its space. That way, when you're saying you're hearing that, there are great guitar solos and great guitar rhythms, but everything else together is what makes it work.
Definitely. Now, Greg, when for a little bit, and I mean a very little bit, you did join Red Dragon Cartel for basically a second, and then I remember when you left, you cited that real life got in the way, basically. Once you get yourself away from living the rock and roll lifestyle, how difficult is it to step back into that world?
From the rock and roll lifestyle, I've never really lived it. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I'm pretty boring. I'm kind of a jock that plays the bass, like a sporting event. But, I mean, Jake and I have always maintained a friendship, so when he asked me to join Red Dragon Cartel, I couldn't do it when he first asked me. When I finally could do it, which was the end of August 2014, he called me and said, "Will you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I can make it fit now." So I did about 50 shows with them. I did shows for basically the fall through right before Christmas of 2014. I stayed in the band till April of 2015, but I had been sick for almost a year at that point. I didn't know what was wrong with me, so I quit the band. I didn't tell anyone why I was quitting. I just kind of made up a story.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to especially tell Jake, "Hey man, I think I might have cancer," until I knew I had it, although I was pretty sure that I had it. So I finally was diagnosed. I quit the band. Jake was not happy about it. He was disappointed that I was quitting.
Sure.
And I called him a couple weeks later after I was diagnosed and said, "Yeah, I have the stage 4 cancer, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, are you joking? I said, "Nah, you can't joke about this." So he was very supportive. I went through the whole treatment. Obviously, I was out of the band. Anthony came in the band. Anthony does an excellent job in the band. Sure. Red Dragon Cartel is a great band still. And one of my favorite bands that's out there right now. Jake's still my bro. And that works really good. Had I not got cancer, I probably would have stayed in the band. However, I still would have done Kings of Dust as well.
Okay.
But because I got cancer and then I went through the whole treatment, it took me about 3 years after the cancer before I finally had enough energy and interest to do it. So, Jimi and Michael and Ryan were very generous as far as saying, "Hey, man, whenever you're ready."
Okay.
And "Are you ready yet?" And I'd say, "No, not yet." And they'd say, "Okay, whenever you feel like it." "You feel like it yet?" So about a year ago, I said, "You know what? Let's do this thing." And I feel good enough now. So we got back together, and it was pretty seamless. It was like we had never been apart. We just went right back into the writing process. we got into pre-production pretty quickly and made the record. So, it's a long roundabout way of answering your question.
Sure.
That was weird to get back on a tour bus, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Reason I quit is because I wanted to raise my kids.
Right.
My kids are older now, and they had never actually seen me play on the level that Red Dragon Cartel did. So my family came out and seen me play at the Whiskey, and they had never been there other than my wife, and they thought that was cool. And then, they went to Bampton, Vegas, and saw that. And then, of course, the whole internet thing just made such a big deal of everything. I went from being off the grid to, like, way on the grid
right. in
a pretty short time. And the cool thing about the internet is I've managed to stay on the grid, even though it's been more than 4 years since I was in Red Dragon Cartel. Because of the internet, it's allowed me to help promote Kings of Dust without really missing a beat. So it's been pretty cool.
No question. So you beat the cancer too, right?
Yeah, I've been cancer-free since my last cancer treatment was October 4th, 2015, which is weird because when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2015, they said you have about 8 to 10 months to live.
Oof.
And I said, yeah, I don't think so. I got a 16-year-old daughter that needs me to be there while she grows up. My son was 7 years older than her, so I needed to kind of stay there. So the cancer treatment, I had cancer on my tongue. It's the cancer treatment sucks anyway, but in your mouth, it's a whole different kind of hell. So I had to go through a lot of crap for that. But I'm cancer-free now, and I'm sitting here able to bitch about it.
Well, bravo to you, man. I went through it 2 years ago with my son. My son, when he was 24, had got diagnosed with it, and I went through the 18 months with him. So I certainly know your battle, and bravo to you, man.
Congratulations to your son.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, congratulations to you, dude. Jesus Christ, man. 3 years of treatment. Woo, that's brutal.
I appreciate it.
No doubt, man. Well, guys, what is the plan moving forward with Kings of Dust? I'm getting the feeling that there will be at least some touring and some shows that people will be able to see.
We definitely want to get this thing out live. The truth is, none of us are in a position really to get on a tour bus for 3 or 4 months at a shot.
Sure.
So what's probably going to happen is we will do some fly-ins. We may there's a promoter out in Texas that wants us to do some dates. He's going to string some, I think, together through Texas and Oklahoma. There's some building interest back east. There's some talk about going over to Japan, maybe doing some festivals in Europe. We've talked about doing M3. Monsters of Rock cruise would be a lot of fun. So getting it out, getting to stretch our legs is definitely on the plan. How that's going to look right now, we're not 100% certain, but there are wheels in motion. So hopefully it won't be too much longer.
Sure, and I would think that the festivals, whether it's Rock Hard in Europe or M3 in the States or whatever, that would be the perfect opportunity for you guys to launch a new band in front of a lot of people that would definitely be into what you're doing.
Absolutely,
that's our plan,
and we're really, 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 really looking forward to it. I mean,
we've never played a live show.
Oh, wow.
This band has never played a live show. So the cool thing about it is the record, the way it's mixed, it's got a very live feel. So I know it's going to work, when we do go play live, because I know it works on the record.
Sure. When you guys recorded, did you record on tape or did you do it digitally? Because it feels awful warm to be digital.
It's done in Pro Tools.
Okay.
But because my day job is I'm a recording engineer and producer, so I don't really use Pro Tools like most people use it. I use it like a tape machine with some really cool editing, and that's exactly what this called for, pretty much minus the editing. I mean, most of the songs were The studio that I own is a real studio. It's not just a bunch of gear in a room.
Right.
It's a purpose-built studio, and so we recorded the record, especially the rhythm tracks, pretty much live.
Okay.
I mean, there was, 1 or 2 takes on almost everything. Some of them were front to back takes. There was very little punching in, if any, and
there's no punching on the bass and drums. The bass and drums, the rhythm tracks between Jimi and I are note for note the way we did it. There's not a song that was done more than 3 takes. Most of them are 1 or 2.
Okay.
And most of the rhythm guitar that Ryan laid down, most of that is live as well. And that was kind of the way that we wanted to do it. I wanted to, no one has tape anymore unless you're going into a huge multi-million-dollar studio. But Michael has the ability to make it sound that way. So even though it's done digitally, it has a very tape feel, a very tape sound to it. And that was not by accident. We were trying to emulate the sound that they made in the 70s.
Right.
Before sampled drums, before cutting and pasting. There's no cutting and pasting anywhere. There's no sampled drums. There's no pitch correction. There's no whatever the singing thing. There's none of that.
Auto-tune.
There's no auto-tune. My feeling was if we can't pull it off live, then let's screw it and we'll do something else instead, a different song. But it had to be real. It had to be done organically. It had to be the real stuff. And if it couldn't be the real stuff, I'm not interested. I've been lucky. I've done mostly real stuff in my career. And if I'm going to do this band, my own band with these guys, then I want the real deal. I want a real honest document of this is where we were at when we did this. And we rehearsed it right. And we went in, we pre-produced it right. And then we went in and nailed it. The recording process was simple. Very few days. The mixing process was a whole different ball game. We mixed it 3 times because we wanted it to be right. We didn't want to get it that close and then have it not be exactly what we wanted. And because Michael does own a studio and we don't have any financial constraints because we don't care whether Michael makes any money or if he lives in a poorhouse. I don't care if he's still living in his car. It doesn't matter to me. It's a nice car. It's got a back seat.
and 4 wheels.
We could spend a lot of time mixing it, and Michael mixed it, and I said, "Nah, it's not exactly it." Then he mixed it again. I said, "Close, but not exactly." So then him and I got together and started really getting into where we wanted it to be. And then Jimi and Ryan came in too, and we got exactly what we were looking for the 3rd time because Michael does a lot of more modern stuff, and there's not a lot of that kind of mixing in today's music.
Right.
And so, now that I made Michael a much better engineer,
I'm still living in my car.
Well, yeah, he's only got one way to go, and that's up.
That's right. Nice. Well, Michael, let me ask you a question that has nothing to do with Kings of Dust, but it's something that I want to figure out from people that do the kind of work that you do with engineering. More and more with aging rock vocalists, I'll say, they use what we call on the show the fuckie effect.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm not saying this about you guys. You guys did not use this.
No, of course not.
No, you guys didn't use it, but there's that effect that rock vocalists tend to put on their voice. It's almost like it's the rock vocalist version of auto-tune. Again, we call it the fuckie effect here on the show. It's that bullhorn sound that people seem to put on their voice. Why do vocalists continue to insist on using that effect? It just sounds terrible.
Are you talking about like the filter?
Yeah.
Like STP used to do that a lot.
Yeah, STP does it. Dokken has done it. Doro has done it. All in later albums, not in their prime now. Is that something that they use to hide their voice?
Well, it's an effect. I mean, that's really what it is. If it's done any more than an effect, and I mean, I'm not calling anybody out here.
Yeah.
But I'm saying what it is. if it's done any more than to be used for an effect, it's a crutch.
Right.
So that's really what it is. I've always said, I auto-tune vocals all day long.
Right.
I'm doing it this morning. It's the way of the world. We didn't do it on this, and most times that I use auto-tune, again, I'm from a completely different generation than most of the people I'm recording.
Sure.
So if there's any stamp that I have on how I record, it's to do it more old school. And I can tell you, after the process of doing my own record, my stance has actually changed a little more to that side. Most of the stuff that I do has always been pretty organic, but it's even more so now.
Sure.
And I think that shows on the record. I think it shows in the feel of the songs. I think it's really important to have those in the music in general, because if you don't have that, everything else, it gets diluted.
Sure. Do you think that auto-tune is one of the main reasons that music has become so disposable? Because the audience just knows that it's fake, so they don't put as much passion into it.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I don't think that. I think a lot of, if you're under 30 years old, mm-hmm. you grew up with auto-tune. You don't know any different. Yeah,
true.
You've never really heard a vocal without it. So to listen to it doesn't bother your ear because you're used to it. I was in radio for a while too, and when I would hear songs on the radio, there were times like during the STP days and late 90s, early 2000s, I could literally hear auto-tune come on and off. I could hear it because it has a sound. And then as time went on and you get to the mid-2000s, I would hear it not come on and off. I would hear it come off on occasion. Mm-hmm. Now I don't hear it come off anymore. Everything is gridded. But just because you can do that doesn't mean you should.
Agree.
I think it's taken a great deal of integrity and heart out of music.
It absolutely has. Mm-hmm. I mean, if can you imagine taking a Led Zeppelin song and auto-tuning Robert Plant? I mean, all the things that he's doing wrong are the reasons you listen to it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
some of the best music is created through a mistake or a bad note or a bad whatever. But the problem you have now with music now is it's now the American Idol, America's Got Talent generation, where now you just go on some TV show and 90% of the people that go try out can't sing anyway. They've been singing in their house and their mommy told them they could, and then they go do it, and then someone makes fun of them and makes an ass out of them on TV. And then you get the other band, the 5% of people that actually make it through, so they don't have to go slug it out in the garage and play some crappy bar like we did. And
right.
They don't really have to, and they don't have to pay their dues. They don't have to suffer for their art. And am I saying that most people on American Idol and America's Got Talent don't suffer for their art? Damn right, I'm saying it. So it makes it easy now. You got your mommy. They take you to the audition. You go on there. You've never done a gig in your life. You sing in your living room, and next thing you know, someone's voting for you because you're cute.
Yeah, and, right. And the hardest work that you put into that whole process was the line waiting to get in.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's for.
I couldn't go on those shows because if I went on there and Simon Cowell said something about me, I'd kick his ass right there in the thing.
You mean that for everybody but Bo Bice, who covered a Badlands tune, right, Greg?
Well, and you know what? It's funny that you would mention Bo. Bo's a friend of mine. I've become friends with him through Facebook.
All right.
And there are a couple people, whether it's Bo or Caleb Johnson and a few other people that I think are exceptions to the rule, they do have some honesty, but the whole shelf life, I feel bad for people that finish in the top 5 on those shows. Their shelf life is literally about 8 months till the next show comes on. So they have to go out. It's a local Phoenix guy that came in 5th or something, and he went on a tour, and he had to make his most out of it while he was still hot. And then once the next season got ready to start, he's off the grid. Now he's got to start over. Now he probably will because he's a talented guy and he's a good singer. But, it's just not a real slice of what the music industry certainly was back when I was doing it. You had to basically be the real deal. You couldn't just get by going up. I had a guy telling me, well, this guy got on that show and he sang Dream On by Aerosmith. And I would care because why now?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, why do I need to hear someone sing Dream On? Here's American Idol I want to see. You write your own friggin' song.
Yeah.
You go on there and you play it with your own friggin' band or with an acoustic guitar, and it's your own honest, real music. It's your emotion. It's not some stuff that Steven Tyler did or anybody else did. You went on there and made an honest statement.
Yeah.
Now it's just a bunch of crap.
Right.
Yeah, that'll never work.
Yeah, it's like get up there and write the next Dream On. Don't come up here and sing Dream On.
Exactly.
And that's right. And you know what, Simon Cowell, I'm ready. Come on over here. I'll kick your ass right here at my school. That's right. I'm Brave Words. Greg Chaisson threatened Simon Cowell. Let's do it.
Nice.
One of the people that ruined music.
Don't disagree, man. I mean, not to turn this into a whole American Idol thing, but you can name. I mean, there's maybe 5 or 6 people that have had success out of 20 years of that show. There's.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example of exactly that. Is Carrie Underwood, who's a girl that she can sing.
Yeah,
she can actually sing, and she can sing pretty well. And when you hear her sing live on the AMAs or one of those stupid shows, she sounds good.
Oh yeah,
she actually is a good singer. My wife listens to her on CD. No, we're not listening to that because I can hear the auto-tune.
Right.
And it drives me nuts. I would rather hear her sing. She's a good singer. I don't know why you're covering it with all this other stuff because the girl can sing. Just let her do it.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Nashville anyway is there's no when you go in there, it's all studio musicians. It's all some engineer making you sound like what you're supposed to sound like or what his vision of what you're supposed to sound like is. And you nailed it, man. There's about 5 people, whether it's Carrie Underwood or
Daughtry.
I can't even.
Chris Daughtry.
But that actually managed to have a career where they stayed at the front end of the spotlight and where it's actually turned into something you can still market. What's the other name? What's the other chick?
Jennifer Hudson.
Kelly Clarkson. Jennifer Hudson. There's maybe 5 or 6 people, but there's people that have won that show. You can't mention their name. Remember it. Adam Lambert managed to have a career out of it, but he goes and he does it doing a clean thing. That's all fine and well. But the most people that do that, you're going to be more disappointed than you are happy about it when it's done.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time you heard of Justin Guarini? Didn't he win it, or he was second or something?
When I was watching the 7-Up commercial today, when he was Little Sweet, that's his legacy. I'm Little Sweet. Oh, it's a sweet one.
I think he gave me my fries for lunch. I think that was him.
Very nice.
I don't even know who you're talking.
It's a sad state, dude. It really is.
It is.
If my kids were musicians and my daughter said, "Dad, I want to go on American Idol," I'd be like, "No, get a band.
Yeah.
We'll go play. Do it on your own. Play with people your age. Go out and slug it out a little bit. I'll help you some, but I'm not going to help you." My parents didn't help me do this at all.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I was able to do it is because no one was saying, "Yeah, man, we believe in you." My dad, "What are you, nuts? You're going to give up a baseball scholarship and go be in a band? What's wrong with you?"
My dad still has no idea what I do. He's heard the record, and he's very proud of it, and thinks I sing real good. But he really doesn't understand what I do. And that's okay. That's all right.
But then again, neither do we.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. Well, let me ask the one hard one, Greg. Just because I'm curious more than anything else. You know as well as I do that the Badlands records are not available commercially. The reasons are at least from what we've heard, is because of Ray and his actions after he got sick. And I don't want to get into all of that.
Yeah, this is the one area I don't cover.
Well, and I don't want to get into that part of it. The question that I have is, do you think that it's fair that the record companies will not let those records be out there, given that there's other bands with guys that have issues, we'll say, whether it's Judas Priest, Leonard Skinner, Lost Prophets, etc. They have guys that have issues, but their records are still on the shelves. Do you think that it's fair that they don't release those records for fans that were just fans of the tunes?
Well, I kind of look at this different. I don't think that the reason those records aren't out have anything to do with that. That's my opinion, and I'll tell you why. You can't withhold Jake and Mind's publishing for whatever someone else did. It's not legal to do it. However, when we were on Atlantic Records, we were difficult. We didn't really, we wouldn't dance to Atlantic's tune, not to be difficult on purpose. We had a vision for the band. Jake had a vision. We did what we wanted to do. If Atlantic wanted us to do something, I'll give you a perfect example. On the second record, they wanted us to record Burning Heart by Vandenberg, and we wouldn't do it. And they were really not very happy about that. And so then they said, we want to bring in a couple of songwriters to write a hit single. And we said, take your songwriters and stick them. And we said, no, this is what we do. We have a contract. We're going to make our own record, and we're going to do what we want. This is our honest way of doing it. They weren't happy. We didn't get along with our A&R guy, Jason Flom, who is now the head of Atlantic Records. And in my own personal opinion, only mine, I don't think those records come out because I don't think Atlantic wants us to get our gold record. We're sitting on that first record about 15,000 copies away from a gold record, which would sell in the first day.
Right.
And Atlantic doesn't want to have to give us a gold record for those two records. We wouldn't dance to their tune. We made their life miserable. We didn't do it to be jerks. We just didn't really care. We did what we wanted to do. Badlands was its own gang. And so I think that as long as, and obviously Atlantic doesn't need to make any money off any Badlands records, even if they could sell another 300,000 copies of them.
Right.
That's that's a small drop in the bucket of Atlantic's coffers. So I think my own opinion is the reason they don't put it out is because they don't want to see us get anything because we didn't do anything that they wanted us to do. That's my opinion.
It's just a shame, man, because there's so many people that love those records, and I mean. And they buy them. They buy them off eBay for like $150 a disc, which is just criminal.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, but again, if you were to ask Jake, is it a concern of his whether they're ever released? Nah. I mean, that was then. This is now.
Right.
Was it a great record? Were those records great? Yeah, they were great. And they actually helped make my career what it is. Being in that band was an important part of the stepping stone for me to be able to do what I wanted in an industry in the 80s where they didn't want bass players like me. They wanted a bass player that could maybe sing and look really cute and just thump along in the A. And I can sing, but I ain't cute, and I definitely don't thump along in the A. And so, the platform that Jake, provided helped make my career, and I carry it forth in Kings of Dust. I just think that when you don't do what someone that has a lot of power wants you to do, you got to pay for it somewhere, and that's where I think we're paying for it. If it comes out, that would be great. I get asked a lot about a best of. I mean, Jake and I own the rights to Dusk.
Right.
And so that's why that's out there from time to time. And if you could do it, there's a lot of unreleased tracks. So is there things you could do with it? Yeah, but Jake and I don't own our own rights to those records because we never recouped on the amount of money that Atlantic spent on us, so they can basically hold that over our heads. If we had recouped, we could put those records out ourselves. But we didn't. We owe them money. They don't care. They know they can't pay us, so they're just going to fuck us as much as they can, and that's what they're doing. And I don't ever swear on the air, but I just did.
It's all right. Nice. Well, guys, for now, for today, for 2020, the new record is called Kings of Dust. It's out. Was out the 13th? Is that right?
Yes, next Friday.
Next Friday, the 13th of March. And I, as a fan, definitely suggest that you should get it, not just because I'm talking to the guys, but because the record just kicks ass. So definitely check it out. And guys, where should people go online to keep up with you guys and find out, where you're going to be at and videos, etc.?
We have a Facebook page, Kings of Dust. You can get information from us on there. We also have an Instagram page, Kings of Dust. I know that when the release is done, it will be it's a worldwide release through Shock Records, and Orchard is distributing it, which is part of Sony. So it'll be all over the place. You can get it on Amazon. I think you can even pre-order it on Amazon. You can still get a hold of us, and we could, sign one for you and ship it off. I have a whole bunch here on my desk that we're doing that right now.
Cool.
What I would tell people that might be interested or not sure, if you like 70s hard rock with a little something extra going on there, you like music with a little bit of intricacy going on and not your typical paint by numbers kind of thing,
right,
you'll probably like what we do in Kings of Dust.
Yeah, and if it should be in a lot of record stores.
Yes.
If you go into one and it's not, absolutely ask for it. Tell them you want it.
Excellent. Well, guys, why don't you guys pick one of the tracks from the new record, and maybe tell us a quick story about it to wrap this interview up.
We're getting ready to shoot a video for a song on the record called "What's the Other," and so that's the one I would tell you to listen to. I mean, here's the thing: I like every song on the record, which is not that common for guys that even on their own records. So it's hard for me to pick one. But I'm just going to say, let's do that one, just because we're going to use the video. We're going to make a video out of it. Lyrically, it's an interesting song because it's just about people that make excuses about why they can't be where they're supposed to be, or why they can't honor their commitment, or why they can't show up for an audition or whatever. It's
procrastination in general.
It's procrastination. The ball hit a rock. My dog ate my homework. Sun was in my eye. It's all that kind of crap. So the thing I like about Michael's lyrics is that he doesn't write your standard, I went to a bar, I met a chick, the next thing you know, whatever. I don't like that kind of music. I don't like that kind of lyrical content. He's actually saying something, and it speaks to some deeper issues, and that is something that moves me. So along with the rest of the songs on the record, What's the Other has that same sort of deep content.
Awesome. Well, let's check it out right now. It is What's the Other? It's the Kings of Dust right here on your Classic Metal Show.